Hi, Tim. Good morning.
Hey Sid, how are you?
I'm pretty good. It's been a cold week here in Copenhagen. A
Mm,
lot of snow and chilly weather, but otherwise all good. How about you?
same, same. Must be time of the year, right?
I
A
will.
little bit of white behind me, more snow on its way. So yeah, start of 2026.
Indeed, I
How did the
think
year start for you?
fantastic. I could not complain about anything. Um 2025 was great in all directions. We had a lot of new colleagues, new customers, new projects, interesting challenges, and more interesting solutions.
Hmm.
And I would say already in the beginning of 26, it doesn't look any different this year.
It doesn't feel different. Yeah.
So no, it's good. It's good.
Mm. All right, great. Any, let's say, learnings from, let's say, 2025 in terms of solutioning, any trends, let's say, in your domain, if we look into your SAP invoice management solutions?
Yeah, I mean, it has got different areas where I can look it from. But a big focus has come from two areas. One is regulatory,
Mm,
especially in Europe. The second one is the IT landscape, right? With the, let's say, the software ecosystem, including vendors and the infrastructure, influencing the entire IT landscape and eventually SAP and everything associated with it. So I see these two angles which dominated most of our work.
mm,
Now, if I touch base on the regulatory part, e-invoicing, which has been going on for a few years, we started seeing different flavors of it.
mm,
Because we now get into some, let's say, what is called centralized e-invoicing domains, like Poland was high on this year. For coming year, we're already looking at very interesting setup in France, for that matter. But now we also see the variations of it, right? From a customer who has a very old SAP system compared to someone who is in the latest and the greatest S for HANA and everything in between.
mm,
And when the software vendors, whether it's SAP or a middleware or DRC, come up with one solution, saying then we as implementation partners have to mix and match. So it's a good Lego exercise, right? So there's
mm,
one overall solution targeted mostly to the latest versions, but the reality is a bit nuanced,
mm,
right? So you have all kind of variations. So that was a real world experience for us last year.
mm,
These e-invoices, how do we fit in what
mm,
is the SAP solution to all these different nuances?
mm.
The
But we
other
did a lot, right? If I look at it, I mean, in terms of countries and in terms of our clients, and which are what I mean a lot. There was a lot of, let's say, e-invoicing, especially in terms of integration with Vim. And,
indeed, indeed,
and
indeed.
you already mentioned Poland, right? Now
Yeah,
France coming, but
yeah. I
I
mean,
assume
last year we did.
Belgium,
Yeah,
Germany. I mean, you probably have the full
that's
list
true. I
of countries.
mean, again, the it's the regulatory map which is the dictating. But looking at our customer base, I think we did for Germany, for Poland, for Romania, for Croatia, for even we had a few African countries like Nigeria that came into picture, even though strictly not.
Is that
EU.
regulatory or what's
It
the
is
driver?
regulatory. Yeah, yeah. It is all regulatory. E-invoices is regulatory, right? And we also touched base on a few Asian, South Asian countries,
Mm-hmm.
Latin American countries, Mexico, Argentina, Chile as well. Brazil has been there forever, so I don't even consider that new, so to speak. Uh, Now, but in especially what is happening in Europe, and interestingly in Denmark, where we sit for many, many, many years, Denmark had something called OIOUPL, and now announced they are going to basically sunset it and get it into what is called UPL.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a few things happening on that angle. So yeah, indeed, we were doing a lot of countries last year, and interestingly, at multiple customers who
Mm.
didn't have the same setup. Right, some were in different version, different kind of software they used, integrations they used. So indeed, it was a
Mm.
interesting experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Some variation, but what I've noticed is if you look at it from a pure, let's say, business and commercial perspective, it it looks kind of the same. Right? So it's not that we all of a sudden, because we have an older SAP system in a special country, that all of a sudden, the efforts or the timelines explode.
Yeah, on a very high level, you can say it's a very basic principle, right? You have data coming of an invoice in XML, and then it needs to be mapped to certain SAP fields. And that needs to be validated and posted into an SAP document. So it's a very simple process. Where the interesting challenges come is that it's not the mapping or the transmission, so to speak, but in some countries they send some certain fields. Yeah, there's
Mm,
identifier that needs to go to the posting in SAP, and that thing doesn't exist in SAP. So
mm,
SAP is coming up with that. For example, we have something called KSF reference in Poland. Now SAP is coming up with a solution as we speak or as we do the project, and something that doesn't exist, then you don't have a plan how to even tackle it.
mm,
And sometimes it's on a screen, sometimes the BAPI doesn't have it, and sometimes they give a solution which is not applicable in a customers because they don't have the same setup. So the challenge becomes, how do I pass the information to the posting document? That's number
mm,
one. The other part that is varying from customer to customer is an XML is not a readable format, right? An approver cannot see an XML and make
mm,
sense like you see from PDF. And now, if you look from end to end, from where the invoice started on the vendor side to where the approval see on the screen, there is no uniform way saying this is how it should look like.
mm,
So we have pieces in the path. Sometimes you can send a PDF from source. Sometimes the middleware party can provide it. Sometimes you say Vim can provide it, and that also creates confusion.
mm,
Yeah. So that's where our effort varies, right?
mm,
Mostly on the visualization part or how to get it in the posting tab. But in between, it's kind of the same.
mm,
Right? It's getting the data in on the transmission medium and the mapping. I think that's
mm,
the easy part, so to speak.
mm. All right. Interesting. Good. So more to expect for that this year.
Interestingly, yes. And I think this year, one of the interesting countries is France.
Mm,
Yeah, they have something called Churros Pro. And that we have already started looking into it, and it seems very interesting. They have a variations of possible XMLs, yeah, which is a mix of a lot of things, UBLs and German like, invoices for categories and UBLs, and they also have a unique concept which has not been practiced yet anywhere in Europe, saying it's neither direct nor tax authorities, but they provide something called authorized partners. Right, so you will
mm,
have a company outsourced from the tax office. So that's an interesting angle
mm,
we are looking at, and they also have a few fields which is specific to France. And again, this is all evolving as we speak, right? So yeah, it's going to be an
mm.
interesting, and we have a few more small ones coming up as well. So yeah, we will be busy, I can guess.
Great. Wonderful.
So that was one, and the second part I said was coming from, let's say, the ecosystem or the IT setup.
Mm,
And what I meant with that primarily is we see a lot of focus on the data, yeah, data storage. Yeah, where
mm,
example, before we used to forget it is in a table and a transaction, and then you have a select query and get the data out. But now it's about what is the cost of keeping the data and how secure it is, which in other words is archiving.
mm,
And that has become very, very, very interesting due to various reasons. The software itself is evolving. That means you might have archive server on premise, and you might have to put it into a cloud solution, core archive, and that means things we have to do which we have never done before, and challenges that have to be solved which didn't exist before.
mm,
But that's also what is also keeping us busy around
mm.
it.
Exactly. Exactly. No, that's also what I see. Let's say archive. Yeah. Popular again. You know, we've been in the industry, and the focus. I actually started my career doing document
Mm,
and data archiving, so it's always interesting for me to see how that has gone in waves, and some triggers, out there that put more focus again on archive. And I think today it's that landscape explanation that you gave, again, as well as an understanding to say, okay, yeah, you need to get control of your data and your documents.
mm,
Yeah. And that is again, we're going to spend a long time talking about AI, because AI is, of course, talk of town. Was very much talk of town last year. That will continue this year. But the foundation is just, you know, critical and important. Yeah, so that archiving in combination, with some proper document management and ECM, yeah, in terms of classifications, etc. I think that goes hand in hand as well. Yeah.
Indeed, and the other part is we see that the the way archive used to work and measured is different, and that is also causing some adjustments. For example, the way one used to measure archive in the traditional way was, okay, how many users are using it,
Mm,
but now that has changed to say how often are you accessing it.
mm,
And that also brings up things that no one bothered about before. Yeah, could you optimize your access if your Fiori is hitting
mm,
an archive and getting the same image multiple times? That is
mm,
counted as accesses, right, in the new model. So can we
mm,
do something on it? Yes, and that's how a lot we have been doing as well.
mm,
uh, can I move the HANA database data that I don't use in a better way, more organized, more scheduled, frequent way, which I have not been doing before? Yes,
mm,
and that's also, and which, then the question comes, which data,
mm,
right? And what does it mean? Where do I start? So there's also a lot of things that always existed in a way. The problems always existed, but they were not so important or prioritized. Suddenly, they become uh, top of the list. And as you say, you start your career with this area
mm,
many years ago. The topics become certainly because relevant, because in today's atmosphere, the value they bring suddenly are more interesting
mm.
than they have been before.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's interesting also to observe that, yeah, these things are connected to each other. Yeah, and it's also interesting if you take a step back to reflect, yeah, but what is driving, you know, that, let's say, the value of the right solutioning and having the right, advice, to our customers, because there can be things out there in the industry. Yeah, we already talked about regulatory and compliance. It can be IT, yeah, just IT technology and the fast changes that you have there. But what you just touched upon is essentially also the license model on how the software vendors, are selling, cloud solutions. Yeah, so it's not just one isolated one, but of course important to understand. Yeah, and I think for us it's important also not only look at technology, because some of that archive technology is the same, I would argue, as it was 20
Mm.
years ago. Yeah, which is great because that's, predictable and understandable, and we have great expertise there. But then indeed things might shift into cloud. Then that's a different technology change somewhere, to do the connection and the connectivity, but also the licensing model. Yeah, and then all of a sudden you get away from just a user-based license model to a read-write transactional based, and that has impact. Absolutely has impact. Yeah, and
Indeed.
it's similar. I mean, how we talk specifically about the archive and licensing there, you see it also with SAP, just on the S4 licensing and the database pricing with the different tiers. It all means that organizations are almost forced to consider data growth. Yeah, and getting, a little bit of
Yeah.
structure and the house in order. Yeah, and that is archiving one thing. Actually, this morning I came out of a call, just a status call with one of our clients, and one of the topics they're saying, oh, they're running a deletion. Yeah,
Hmm.
so they're looking at, I think it was a specific country for Belgium, documents from a certain system or certain source or type, more than 5 year old. We're running, batches of, I don't know, 10, 15,000 documents per hour that we, in a controlled way want to delete. Now, the reason I mentioned this is 10 years ago, I did not hear anybody talk about
No.
deletion.
Yeah, indeed,
I
because
mean,
you
that's
just
for
kept it
everything
and forget
forever.
it, right?
Exactly.
Just to add to this, it just occurred to me, the other dimension that like I say, it was always there, but it's becoming obvious now. When you had something on premise, right? You had one server as an archive, and before you know, you had a multiple archives just storing different things.
Mm,
And this all worked because they were all sitting in your house. With the cloud, let's say they were decentralized in a way, and the business was working because the leading application could access all of these on-premise servers. With the cloud, things are getting centralized again. Now I see a lot of traction in collecting different kind of servers, archives from different companies even, which are in a company, and then they try to consolidate to put into one archive due to various reasons, because
Mm,
AI is driving a lot of this, security is driving a lot of this, and all of these software vendors are coming with a similar model
mm,
of pricing. So then it becomes important to understand what is our total cost or what is our total exposure.
mm,
Right? You cannot have 5 different archives and 5 different vendors. Then we are touching up something on migration,
mm,
not from on-premise to cloud, but different kind of on-premise to one cloud.
mm,
And that is also, as you said, part
mm,
of this whole ecosystem where you say why it is important, yeah, why it is interesting.
mm. Absolutely.
So yeah, I think these are some of the things I already see, which will keep us busy in 26. But we are just starting the year, and
Mm.
let's see what else bring us down the line. But yeah,
Good. All right. Good. So great catching up for today.
thank you for today, Tim, and
Yeah.
always a pleasure having this chat with you.
Likewise. Thank you all for now.
Thank you all.
Bye.